In this video, we will see what is CSS box model. So box model in CSS is the foundation of layout on the web. Each element is represented as a rectangular box with its content, padding, border and margin. So let me explain it to you better with an example. So here we have a division with a class of box, and we have this text content over here. We'll use this division to study box model in CSS. If you go to the style.css file, we can see we have this basic styling over here. Now each of the box properties are represented as different layers. So the first one is the content of the box. So this is the content of our box. Now when we give a height and a width to our division, it gets applied to the content of our box. So let's go ahead and give it a width of 350 pixels and we'll give it a height of 150 pixels. So this is our box, and the whole thing we see over here is the content of our box. Now the next layer is the padding. So padding is basically the area from the edge of the box to the content of the box. So let's apply some padding to our box. So we'll type padding of 32 pixels. Now here we can see we have this area between the edge of the box and the content of our box. So this is called the padding. Now the next layer is the border of our box. The border is applied outside the box. So we'll have a border of 32 pixels, solid red. And here we can see we have this 32 pixels of border outside our box. Now the last layer in our box is the margin of our box. Margin is basically used to separate itself from other elements. It pushes up against other CSS boxes. Now what we'll do is we'll go to our HTML file and we'll create one more division. And here we can see the second division, and now we'll go to our style.css and we'll test our margin. So we'll add a margin of 32 pixels, and we can see that 32 pixels of margin has been added to our box. But if you notice down here, we can see that we have only 32 pixels of margin over here, but we have given the margin to both the divisions because we are targeting the division over here. And you may think that we should have 32 plus 32, which is 64 pixels of margin over here. But what happens with margin is that it collapses when we have adjacent elements. So the largest margin will be added to the adjacent elements. So here we have 32 pixels of margin for both the elements. So 32 pixels of margin is added over here. If you have one of these divisions with a margin greater than 32 pixels, then that will be added over here. So that's basically how the box model works in CSS. But working with this kind of setup can prove to be difficult at times. For instance, if you want to have a box with a width of exactly 300 pixels and also want to add border and padding to it, then you have to calculate the width of the content box. So let me show you a demo. So we'll go to our HTML file, and we have this division with a class of box. So we'll just target the box division. So we'll type .box over here, and for the other division we'll give it a class of reference, and we'll target that over here, and we'll give it a margin of 32 pixels to align with this box over here, and we'll give it a width of 300 pixels, and we'll also give it a height of 4 pixels, and we'll also set a background color. So here is our reference division, and the width of this division is exactly 300 pixels because we don't have any padding or border for this division. Now if we set the width of our box to 300 pixels, we can see that it has a width of more than 300 pixels. That is because we have this border of 32 pixels and a padding of 32 pixels. So this combines to 64 pixels, and we also have border and padding on the right. So the border and padding on both the sides add to 128 pixels. So the total width of our box is 300 plus 128 pixels, that is 428 pixels. We can see that in the inspector. So we'll just right click over here and click on inspect. Now if I hover over this element, we can see that it says div.box and it has a width of 428 pixels. So now if you want to have a width of 300 pixels for the element, then you have to set the width to 300 minus 128 pixels, which is the border and the padding of both the sides. So we'll type 172 over here, Now we can see that we have exactly 300 pixels of width for the box. But this is a time consuming thing to do, so we have an easy option over here. So what we can do is we can change the behavior of the box model. We can set it to border box so that the width of our element will include the border and the padding. So let's change this width to 300 pixels, and we'll just add a line of code box sizing to border box. And now if I save this, we can see that the total width of our element is 300 pixels including the border and the padding. Alright, so that's basically it for this video. See you in the next one.